Puerto Rico had seen wild nights before, but nothing compared to what went down when Rasheeda Frost walked straight into the storm she never thought she'd face again. The sun was dipping behind the ocean, the air thick with salt and secrets, and Kirk was supposed to be handling business. But whispers spread faster than the island breeze, rumors that Kirk wasn't alone. And when Rasheeda's phone buzzed with a message that simply said, "You might want to come to the beach bar," she didn't hesitate. The scene that followed could have been pulled straight from a Love and Hip Hop episode. Except this time, there were no producers, no cameras, just raw, unfiltered chaos. The bar lights flickered, the music thumped, and right there, tucked away in a corner, Kirk Frost sat with Jasmine Washington, heads close, drinks in hand, laughing like old times. Rasheeda froze. For a second, she couldn't breathe. The man who swore he'd cut ties, the woman who swore she'd moved on, and yet here they were smiling like betrayal was just another vacation memory. Fans who happened to be on the island said they saw it all unravel. 1 minute Rasheeda was standing by the bar, phone clenched tight, eyes locked on the couple. The next, she stormed toward them, heels clicking on the wooden deck, every step louder than the music. "So this is what business looks like now," she shouted, her voice slicing through the bass. Kirk's glass hit the table. Jasmine's smile dropped. Cameras, or maybe just phones, were already out. Locals say you could feel the tension across the resort. Tourists stopped mid-dance. Staff whispered behind trays. And someone muttered, "Atlanta just came to Puerto Rico." Emotions ran high as Kirk stammered through excuses, trying to calm Rasheeda while Jasmine tried to slip away unnoticed. But Rasheeda wasn't letting anyone walk this time. "Nah, we doing this right here," she said, standing tall, her voice steady but shaking underneath. What happened next turned a quiet Caribbean night into a trending scandal. Witnesses claim Rasheeda snatched Kirk's phone and found more than messages. She found hotel receipts under Jasmine's name. Jasmine denied everything, saying Kirk had invited her to discuss co-parenting boundaries. Kirk insisted it was all misunderstood, but Rasheeda wasn't buying a word. Within minutes, the scene became a frenzy. Fans were live on Instagram. The internet was flooded with Rasheeda vs. Jasmine Part 2 hashtags, and even other cast members started dropping cryptic comments hinting they knew this was coming. By morning, the story had spread across Atlanta and beyond. Now everyone's asking the same question: did Kirk really betray Rasheeda again? Or is there more to this island meeting than anyone knows? Because if you think this was just a coincidence, you're about to see how deep this story really goes. Under the thick Puerto Rican night, the ocean hummed low against the rocks while the hotel lights shimmered like broken glass across the water. Rasheeda stood there in silence for a long second, the wind catching her curls. The faint echo of laughter from Kirk and Jasmine still floating from the bar behind her. She couldn't believe it. After all the years, the fights, the counseling, the public humiliation, he was still finding his way back to Jasmine. She could taste the betrayal on her tongue like salt. When Kirk finally noticed her standing there, he froze, that easy smile draining from his face. Jasmine's hand, which had been brushing his sleeve, fell back to the table. The music kept going, the lights kept flashing, but the air turned still, like the whole island was holding its breath. "Rasheeda, what are you doing here?" Kirk said, his voice caught somewhere between guilt and panic. "You tell me," she shot back, her eyes glinting. "You said you were in a meeting, but this looks like a whole damn date." The people nearby pretended not to stare, but every head was tilted toward them, phones slipping out discreetly. A few whispered to each other, recognizing the couple from Atlanta. "That's Kirk and Rasheeda from Love and Hip Hop," someone muttered. "No way, this is happening for real." Kirk stood up, trying to keep his voice calm. "It's not what you think. We were just talking." Jasmine reached out. About what, Kirk?" Rasheeda cut him off, stepping closer. "About the same thing she always reaches out for. Attention. Sympathy. Or is it about money this time?" Jasmine flinched. "Don't talk to me like that," she snapped, her tones soft but trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong. Kirk just said he wanted closure." "Closure," Rasheeda repeated, her laugh sharp and hollow. "You got closure years ago, Jasmine. You got your son, you got your moment, you got your peace. So why are you back?" The bar went quiet. Even the bartender slowed down his shaking glass routine. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. "Because Kirk reached out first," she whispered. The words hit Rasheeda harder than she expected. Kirk's jaw tightened. He turned toward Jasmine, shaking his head. "That's not true. You texted me first about Kai's birthday." Rasheeda interrupted again. "Don't lie to me right now. I can see it in your face. You did call her." Kirk sighed, running a hand over his face. "I called to make peace, to keep things smooth for the kids. That's it." Smooth. Rasheeda's voice cracked. You sneaking off to Puerto Rico with your ex-side chick, while your wife's sitting back home running businesses for you. That's what Smooth looks like now. The bystanders were already filming. The glow from their phones painted the trio in a cold, ghostly light. Jasmine pushed her chair back, grabbing her purse. I'm not about to sit here and get attacked, she said. I came here to talk about our son, not to start another war. But Rasheeda wasn't done. Oh, you'll talk, she said, stepping closer. You'll talk right here, because I'm not flying across an ocean just to let y'all play me again. Jasmine took a breath, eyes darting between them. Kirk told me you already knew. He said you were okay with us meeting. Rasheeda's mouth fell open. He said what? Kirk raised his hands defensively. I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't want to make it a big deal. You know how things get twisted. Rasheeda said, her voice rising. No, Kirk, you know how you twist things. You've been twisting since 2017. A waiter approached nervously, trying to de-escalate. Ma'am, sir, please, this is a family restaurant. Rasheeda turned her head slowly, eyes fierce. Then he should have acted like family. The waiter backed away without another word. The silence that followed was heavy. Kirk's phone buzzed on the table, lighting up with the name Mimi calling. Rasheeda's gaze fell on it, and her heart sank further. So it's Jasmine in Puerto Rico and Mimi on the phone, she said quietly. You really gotta type, huh? Kirk's voice cracked. Rasheeda, don't do this here. Please, let's go back to the hotel and talk. She snapped. You had your talk with Jasmine already. Now it's my turn. Jasmine tried to stand, but Rasheeda blocked her. You know what's funny? Rasheeda said, her voice trembling. Every time I start to believe you've changed, Jasmine's name pops up like a ghost. And here you are again smiling, sipping drinks. While I'm out here fighting for a marriage that you keep setting on fire. Jasmine whispered. I didn't come here to cause trouble, I swear. Then why come at all? Rasheeda demanded. You knew how this would look. Because I still care. Jasmine blurted out. Not like that, but I care about how everything ended. I care about our kid growing up seeing hate between us. Kirk said he wanted to fix that. For a fleeting moment, the words almost softened Rasheeda's expression. Almost, so y'all fixing things with pina coladas in paradise, she said bitterly. That's cute. Then her voice broke. You know what hurts? I gave this man everything. I rebuilt him, forgave him, defended him when nobody else would. And this is how he repays me. A secret flight, a secret dinner, a secret smile. Kirk stepped forward, lowering his voice. I love you, you know that. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just wanted peace between everybody. Rasheeda's eyes filled with tears, but her words were ice. Peace doesn't come from lies, Kirk. It comes from honesty, and you've been allergic to that your whole damn life. For a moment, nobody spoke. Only the ocean filled the silence, waves crashing like thunder behind them. Jasmine reached for her purse again, but Kirk stopped her. Don't go, he said softly. Running won't help. You think me staying will. Jasmine replied, voice shaking. You think this won't be all over the blogs by sunrise? You just ruined everything. And she was right. Because by then, 3 different phones were already live. Clips of Rasheeda yelling, Kirk pleading, and Jasmine defending herself were spreading like wildfire online. Within hours, #Puerto Rico Showdown was trending across Atlanta, Miami, and New York. As the bar manager finally stepped in and asked them to leave, Rasheeda turned to Kirk one last time. You better find a new flight home, she said quietly. Because the man I thought I married, he didn't make it to Puerto Rico. She walked away, her heels clicking against the deck like gunfire. Jasmine stood frozen, her eyes glistening, and Kirk just watched the woman he'd broken walk into the night. Outside, fans waited near the resort gates, phones out, lights flashing. Someone shouted, Rasheeda, did you really catch him cheating again? She didn't answer. She just slid on her sunglasses, even though it was midnight, and kept walking. As the car pulled away, Kirk stood on the balcony, staring after the taillights until they disappeared. Jasmine turned to him and whispered, You shouldn't have asked me here. I know, he said, but it's too late now. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled over the sea. The sound swallowed by the waves, carrying the last of their broken secrets into the dark. The sky over San Juan was still bruised purple when Rasheeda's car pulled away from the resort gates. The headlights carved through the humid air, cutting across palm trees and half-awake tourists, but she didn't notice any of it. She was staring straight ahead, eyes glassy, her phone buzzing nonstop on the seat beside her. Her name was already trending in Atlanta, New York, Miami. Clips of the bar fight had hit every blog before midnight. Fans were posting slow-motion videos of her shouting, of Kirk stammering, of Jasmine looking away like a ghost. The captions were cruel. Same story, different island. Rasheeda never learns. Kirk Frost strikes again. The car wound along the coastline, waves flashing white in the dark. She could feel the tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. She had spent too many nights crying over the same man. She pressed her lips together and whispered to herself, "Not this time. Not again." Back at the resort, Kirk sat on the edge of the balcony, head in his hands. Jasmine stood near the glass door, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the ocean. The silence between them was heavier than any fight. The phone lights outside flickered like tiny fires. Fans had camped out near the lobby hoping for more footage. The manager had already called security twice. "They're gonna throw us out," Jasmine said finally, her voice flat. "I'll handle it," Kirk muttered. "You can't handle it, Kirk. It's everywhere now." She turned toward him, eyes tired. "You just blew up your whole life again." He didn't answer. He just kept staring down at his phone. Dozens of missed calls from Benzino, Scrappy, even Stevie J. Producers were already reaching out. Somebody from VH1 had texted him, "If you're still in Puerto Rico, keep filming. This might save the next season." "They're turning this into content already," Jasmine said quietly. "Do you even realize that? It's always content," Kirk said, his voice breaking. "Our pain, our mistakes, our lives, it's all just ratings." She sat down across from him, folding her legs under her. "Then maybe stop giving them material." He looked up at her, tired eyes meeting hers. "You think I wanted this? You called me here," she reminded him. "You wanted to talk about co-parenting. You said it'd be private. You said Rasheeda didn't need to know." He sighed. "I didn't think it'd turn into this." "You never do." Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Kirk stood up, walking inside. The hotel room was still half lit from the balcony lights. His suitcase was open on the bed, clothes spilling out, receipts and papers everywhere. Jasmine followed him in. "She's done with me," he said quietly. "She's said that before," Jasmine replied. He turned sharply. This time it felt different. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of the ocean came through the open doors. Jasmine walked to the dresser, picking up a folded photo that had slipped from his wallet. It was Kai's picture, their son smiling at the camera in his school uniform. She stared at it, her throat tightening. "He deserves better than this," she whispered. Kirk nodded slowly. "They all do." By dawn, the story had made every gossip outlet in America. The blogs ran headlines like Rasheeda storms Puerto Rico after catching Kirk with Jasmine, and Frost family vacation turns into public meltdown. The hashtags #team RASHEEDA and #pray for Kirk battled under every post. Even the Shade Room had posted a clip with the caption, "This reunion nobody asked for." Meanwhile, Rasheeda had checked into a small boutique hotel on the far end of the island. It was quieter there, away from the chaos. She sat by the window watching the sunrise, her phone still buzzing on the table. A text from Spice came first. "Sis, I saw the video, you good?" Then one from Carly read, "Girl, he played himself this time. Don't even stress." She read them without replying. Instead, she opened Instagram and saw her own face everywhere. Someone had slowed down the video to show the exact moment her eyes filled with tears. Fans had turned it into a meme. Others were defending her, calling her the queen of strength. She finally called home. Her voice was calm but distant as she spoke to her assistant. "Don't post anything. Not a word. Not on Frost Boutique. Not on Pressed. Nowhere. We go silent till I'm back." "Yes, ma'am," the assistant said softly. "Do you want me to book your flight?" "Not yet," Rasheeda replied. "Let him sit in it for a while." As the day wore on, she wandered down to the beach, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hat pulled low. People recognized her anyway. Some came up to ask if she was okay. Others just snapped photos from a distance. She didn't care. The ocean was calm, endless, the kind of quiet she hadn't felt in years. Back at the main resort, Kirk finally left his room around noon. The paparazzi were waiting near the pool. Microphones were shoved in his face. "Kirk, was this a romantic trip with Jasmine? Did Rasheeda know? Are you two breaking up again?" He didn't answer any of them. He just kept walking, jaw tight, hands buried in his pockets. Jasmine followed a few steps behind, her eyes down. One of the photographers shouted, "Jasmine, are you still in love with Kirk?" She stopped for half a second, then kept walking to. That clip became another viral moment. People replayed it 100 times, debating the look on her face. Some said guilt. Some said heartbreak. Others said she was loving the attention. By evening, Kirk's phone rang again. This time, it was his son. Kai's small voice came through the speaker, confused and scared. "Daddy, Why are people saying bad things about you and mommy? Kirk closed his eyes. Don't listen to them, champ. Grown folks just talking too much. But mommy cried, the boy said. That broke him. He sat on the edge of the bed, hand over his face. I know, son. I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. Okay. Rasheeda didn't answer when Kai called next. She was still on the beach, staring at the waves turning gold under the sunset. A woman sitting nearby whispered to her friend, That's Rasheeda Frost. She's been out here all day. The friend looked over and said quietly, She looks like she's trying not to disappear. Night fell again. Thunder grumbled out over the water. Rasheeda finally went back to her hotel room, kicked off her heels, and sat on the floor beside the bed. Her phone lit up again. This time it was a live notification. Jasmine had gone live. Against her better judgment, she clicked it. Jasmine's face filled the screen, eyes red, makeup smudged. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she said to the camera. I didn't come here to hurt nobody. I thought we were meeting to talk about our kid. That's all. I didn't know Rasheeda was gonna be here. I didn't even know she was in Puerto Rico. Comments flooded the chat, half calling her a liar, half telling her to speak her truth. It's not what people think, Jasmine continued, wiping her face. And I'm not trying to be messy, but I can't keep being the villain forever. I moved on. I got my own life. But somehow, his name and mine keep finding each other again. Maybe that's the problem. We never finished what we started, and it keeps haunting everybody. Rasheeda closed the live, shaking her head. She's still acting, she muttered. But somewhere deep down, something in those words stuck. Later that night, there was a knock at her door. She hesitated before opening it. Kirk stood there, eyes tired, wearing the same clothes from the night before. Can we talk? He asked quietly. She didn't move. I told you to find another flight. I know, he said, but I couldn't leave it like that. She turned and walked back into the room, not inviting him in but not closing the door either. He followed. The air smelled like rain and salt. You made me a fool again, she said finally, her voice low. You looked me in the eye and promised you'd never embarrass me like that again. And then you go and do this on camera. In public, in another country. He rubbed the back of his neck. I messed up. I was trying to fix one mess and made another. You think sorry's gonna fix it? No, he said quietly, but I'm saying it anyway. She turned to face him fully now. What were you even doing there with her? Don't lie. He hesitated too long. That was answer enough. You can't even say it, she said. You really haven't changed. It wasn't like that. He insisted. She reached out, said she wanted to clear things for Kai, and you said that last time, Rasheeda interrupted, and the time before that, you always got a reason, always got a story, but at the end of the day, it's the same headline. Kirk Frost caught cheating. Rasheeda caught forgiving. I'm tired. Her voice cracked on the last word. He stepped closer, but she backed away. Don't, she warned. You don't get to touch me. He stopped, his hands trembling slightly. I don't know what you want me to say. Say nothing, she replied, because I don't believe you anymore. They stood there in silence for a long time. Outside, the rain began to fall, heavy against the glass. Somewhere down the hall, someone's TV was playing an old love song. Jasmine's voice drifted faintly from another room, giving yet another interview. Rasheeda finally spoke. You should go. Go back to your hotel, to your producers, to your excuses. Whatever it is you do when you ruin things. And what about us? There is no us. He wanted to argue, but he could see it in her eyes. This wasn't a bluff, not a scene for the cameras. This was real. He nodded slowly. If you leave, I won't stop you, he said, but you'll always be the only woman I ever loved, right? She gave a small bitter laugh. You sure got a strange way of showing love. He walked out, closing the door behind him. Rasheeda stood there, staring at the handle, waiting for anything to stop her from falling apart, but nothing came. She slid down the wall, head in her hands, the sound of the rain swallowing her sobs. By morning, new footage had leaked. Someone from the hotel had recorded Kirk leaving her room. Now the rumors were worse. Blogs claimed they'd reconciled. Others said she'd taken him back again. The truth was quieter. She was still in that room, staring at the ocean, wondering when heartbreak stopped hurting and just turned numb. And outside, the island moved on, the waves washing over everything they'd tried to hide, carrying their voices out to sea. Morning light rolled over the city like gold smoke, turning the wet streets of San Juan into a mirror. Kirk hadn't slept. His phone was dead, his clothes still damp, his mind running in circles that never found an exit. He walked aimlessly through the quiet streets, past shuttered shops and early fishermen, until he reached the beach. The same beach where Rasheeda had cried alone the night before. He sat on a rock and watched the tide crawl in, each wave erasing footprints like it was erasing proof of what happened. He whispered to himself, I really lost her this time. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was packing. Every zipper sounded final. Her assistant had managed to book an early flight to Atlanta. The producers were already waiting there, begging for her to go on camera and tell her side. She didn't want to. She was done explaining her pain to people who turned it into hack. But something inside her said she had to go home and face it, not hide from it. Before she left, she stood by the balcony, looking at the ocean one last time. Goodbye, Puerto Rico, se murmuró. You can keep the lies. At the same moment, Jasmine was sitting 2 floors below, scrolling through her phone. The comments under her latest post were vicious. People called her names, told her to disappear, accused her of ruining lives again. She wanted to delete everything and vanish, but then a notification popped up. An unknown number had sent her a message. It read, You don't know me, but I have something you need to see. Kirk's been lying to both of you. Attached was a blurry photo, Kirk at the airport 2 days before the trip, talking to a woman who definitely wasn't Rasheeda or Jasmine. The caption underneath said, Ask him about the woman from Atlanta who works at the label. Jasmine stared at the photo, her stomach turning cold. Oh my God, she whispered. The plane engines roared above as Rasheeda boarded her flight back to Atlanta. She sat by the window, wearing dark glasses, pretending to sleep. Her mind replayed everything, the laughter she heard before she walked in, the way Kirk froze, Jasmine's guilty eyes, the fans' shouts outside. She wondered if she had made the right decision leaving, but then she remembered the phone lighting up with Mimi calling, and she knew she had. Some pain isn't meant to be fixed. By the time her flight landed, Atlanta was buzzing. The city thrived on gossip, and her story had set the streets on fire. Paparazzi waited outside the airport, lights flashing like lightning. Fans shouted questions, half concerned, half desperate for a Rasheeda, are you and Kirk done for good? Did Jasmine set you up? She didn't answer. She just slid into her car and told the driver to go straight to Frost headquarters. At the same time, Jasmine was calling Kirk nonstop. He finally picked up, sounding exhausted. What do you want, Jasmine? Don't play with me, she snapped. Who's the woman in that airport photo? What photo? Don't lie. Someone sent it to me. I don't know what you're talking about. She laughed bitterly. You really got the nerve to act innocent after everything that just went down. Jasmine, please, no, you listen. She cut him off. You told me you wanted peace. You told me you wanted honesty. But now there's another woman. Who is she? He went quiet. Silence so heavy it said everything. Yeah, Jasmine said finally. That's what I thought. She hung up. Her heart was pounding. For years, she had been the villain in everybody's story. But now, she wasn't even sure who the villain really was anymore. Back in Atlanta, the Frost boutique was chaos. Reporters outside, fans inside, employees whispering. When Rasheeda walked through the door, the chatter died. She went straight to her office, closed the blinds, and sat down. On her desk lay a single folder, papers for new business deals, brand partnerships, upcoming events. She looked at the top page where Kirk's name was still listed as She pulled out a pen, drew a single line through it, and signed her own name twice. An hour later, Spice and Carly showed up. They didn't knock. They walked in, arms crossed, eyes full of questions. Spice spoke first. Girl, we saw the footage. That was wild. How you holding up? Rasheeda sighed. I don't even know anymore. I feel like I'm trapped in a loop. Well, the internet's having a whole field day, Carly said. You trending harder than the Super Bowl right now. Let them talk, Rasheeda replied quietly. Maybe if they talk long enough, I'll stop hearing my own thoughts. Spice sat beside her. You sure you're done with him this time? This time, Rasheeda said, looking her friend in the eye. I'm not making promises to him. I'm making one to myself. Carly nodded slowly. Then you better stick to it, 'cause he's probably on his way here right now to do his whole sad boy apology tour. They weren't wrong. Kirk was already packing in Puerto Rico again, heading for the next flight home. Jasmine had already left. She didn't even tell him. She just slipped out of the hotel before sunrise, leaving only a note under his door that said, You keep saying you love her, but you don't even love yourself enough to stop lying. By afternoon, Kirk's flight landed in Atlanta. The first thing he saw when he turned his phone back on was a clip from the local news. Rasheeda Frost officially cuts Kirk out of Frost Enterprises. The anchor's voice was too calm for how loud his heart started pounding. He called her, but she didn't answer. He called again. Voicemail. Later that night, he drove to their house. The gate code still worked, which felt like mercy. He parked and sat in silence for a long time before knocking. She opened the door but didn't step aside. "What do you want, Kirk?" "5 minutes," he said. "You've had years." He looked desperate, older somehow. "I just need to explain." "Explain what?" she asked. "That you lied again. That you humiliated me again. That I never stopped loving you." She almost laughed. "Love isn't the problem. It's what you do with it." He lowered his head. "I know I can't fix it overnight," but she cut him off. "You can't fix it at all. This isn't about the trip anymore, Kirk. It's about respect. You broke it every time you thought I'd forgive you." He took a deep breath. "Then what do you want me to do? Leave me alone." The words hit harder than she expected. Saying them out loud made it real. He nodded slowly, stepping back. "Okay," he whispered. "But when you look back someday, I hope you remember that I tried." She didn't answer. She just closed the door. Hours passed. The city lights flickered outside. She sat on the couch, staring at the empty glass of wine in her hand. The sound of rain on the windows brought her back to Puerto Rico for a moment. To the waves and the thunder and the way everything seemed to collapse in slow motion. She picked up her phone, scrolling through the endless posts about the scandal. One headline caught her eye: exclusive. Jasmine Washington spotted meeting with producers in Atlanta. New tell-all interview coming soon. Rasheeda smirked faintly. "Of course she is," she said to herself, turning pain into press. But what she didn't know was that Jasmine's interview wasn't just gossip. It was about to change everything. Jasmine had found the mystery woman from the airport, and that woman, a young assistant from the record label, had texts, hundreds of them, messages from Kirk begging her to keep things between them, promising her a spot on the next project, and telling her that Rasheeda wouldn't find out. When Jasmine saw those texts, something in her shifted. For the first time, she didn't feel like the enemy. She felt like one of the victims. So when the producers called, she said yes. She was ready to tell the world what really happened. A week later, the interview aired online. Within minutes, it exploded. Jasmine sat there under studio lights, voice calm but eyes wet, saying, "People think I'm the villain, but they don't know the half of it. Kirk's been lying to everyone, not just Rasheeda. He manipulates, he promises, he hides, and we all fall for it. I did once, but never again." The interviewer leaned in. "So you're saying there was another woman?" "More than one," Jasmine replied. "But I'm done covering for him. Let the truth burn." Within hours, clips from the interview hit every feed. Fans were screaming in comments sections. Old castmates went live giving their opinions. Spice posted a story saying, "See, I told y'all, when women speak, believe them." Carly tweeted, "Ain't no vacation without receipts." Kirk tried to deny it at first, posting a long caption about growth and privacy. It backfired. Fans flooded his comments with laughing emojis and quotes from Jasmine's interview. Within 2 days, brands started pulling away from his partnerships. One even issued a statement. "We stand with women who choose honesty over humiliation." Through it all, Rasheeda stayed silent. She didn't post, didn't speak, didn't respond. People called it strength, but inside, it felt like exhaustion. One night, sitting alone in her living room, she looked at a photo of her and Kirk from years ago, young, smiling, believing love could fix anything. She placed it face down on the table. "We're not those people anymore," she whispered. Across town, Kirk sat in his car outside the studio where Jasmine had filmed her interview. The lights were off, but he could still see her face on every billboard, every thumbnail. He muttered, "You win." But he didn't know who he was talking to, her, Rasheeda, or the ghost of the man he used to be. As the rain started again, thunder rolled in the distance, like Puerto Rico had followed them home. And somewhere, between heartbreak and headlines, the story wasn't done yet. It was only shifting, waiting for the next eruption. In this fictional retelling, the names you hear are characters in a scripted drama, and every moment that follows is staged for entertainment value only. Even when it feels ripped from life, Atlanta woke up hungry for blood, and the reunion stage smelled it coming. Bright lights washed the studio in heat. Camera cranes floated like vultures, and the audience lined up with signs that read Team Rasheeda and accountability for Kirk, and Jasmine says tell the whole truth. Producers whispered into headsets, makeup artists dabbed trembling cheeks. And somewhere backstage, a door slammed so hard even the sound guy flinched. The scandal from Puerto Rico had cracked the story wide open, and tonight was where the pieces would either fit or cut everyone who tried to hold them. Rasheeda sat in a dressing room by herself, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the mirror. She looked calm, but the calm that comes after a storm, when the air is too clean, too sharp. The stylist hovered with a brush she didn't need. "You sure about no gloss?" she asked. Rasheeda nodded. "No gloss. I want them to see every word. The producer peeked through the door, voice careful. We're 5 minutes out. If you need water, I need silence, Rasheeda said. Not unkindly, just certain. The door closed. She took a breath and whispered, remember, you owe yourself the truth. Then she stood, adjusted the blazer that fit her like armor, and walked toward the stage down the hall. Kirk paced in a long rectangle, one hand on his neck, the other crushing a bottle cap. Jasmine leaned against a counter, scrolling through messages she should stop reading. Neither spoke, neither looked at the other. Finally, Jasmine said, they're going to ask about the airport girl. Kirk didn't answer. She tried again. You think pretending she doesn't exist is gonna make her disappear? His jaw twitched. They're gonna ask us anything that gets a reaction. Don't feed it. Jasmine gave a small, disbelieving laugh. We're standing in a house made out of reactions. Look around. The stage manager popped in. You two are second segment. Steak. He left before the tension could answer back. The host strode out first. Warm smile, sharp questions behind it, the audience roaring on cue. Welcome back to a reunion no one could have predicted. After an explosive island trip, we've got fallout, answers, and receipts. The words landed like cymbals. The first chair was empty. The camera cut to a tunnel. Footsteps. The crowd surged to its feet. Rasheeda walked out without looking left or right, sat, crossed her legs, and folded her hands like a queen who'd seen every storm and learned to name them. The host waited for silence. How are you? He asked. She met the lens. Awake, she said. The audience snapped their fingers. The host nodded. Let's start simple. In Puerto Rico, you caught Kirk and Jasmine meeting. Did you know they planned it? No, she said. I was told he had meetings. I didn't know the meeting came with nostalgia and night air. A murmur rolled through the seats. What went through your head when you saw them? The host asked. Nothing, Rasheeda said. That's how deep shock goes. There's a silence where your heart should be. The host glanced to the side camera. We're going to roll a clip purely for context. On the screen behind them, phone footage flickered. The bar lights, Kirk's startled face, Jasmine's stiff smile, Rasheeda's voice cutting the beat clean in half. The audience gasped like they hadn't already watched it 20 times at home. When the clip ended, the host turned back. And after that, Rasheeda said, I told him to find a new flight. I ended mine. The crowd erupted until the host lifted a hand. Let's bring out Kirk. The booing started before he stepped out. Bright lights flashed. He kept his eyes on the floor for 3 steps, then looked straight at Rasheeda. She didn't blink. He sat 2 chairs away, leaving an empty buffer like it could protect her from his history. The host jumped in. Kirk, you've heard the reaction. What do you want to say? Kirk gripped his knees. I messed up. I tried to make peace and created chaos. I shouldn't have met Jasmine. I shouldn't have kept it from her. I'm sorry. Murmurs. The host tilted his head. Are you sorry you did it? Or sorry you got caught? Kirk swallowed. Both, he said. The audience hissed. Rasheeda finally turned to him. You can't fix a broken leg with the word sorry, she said. You can only watch it limp. He looked down again, and Jasmine, the host said, please join us. Jasmine stepped out to a storm of sound cheers, boos, a chant that rose, fell, and rose again. She sat on the far side, back straight, hands folded, a soft tremor in her jaw. The host leaned forward. You did an interview, and you said there were more lies than the public knew. You also received a photo of Kirk with another woman at the airport. Where do you stand today? Jasmine looked into the camera, voice steady. I stand away from confusion. I came to Puerto Rico because I believed we were improving communication for our child. I left Atlanta because I didn't want trouble. I've spent years wearing the villain costume, and I'm tired of costumes. The host nodded. Did you know Rasheeda was in Puerto Rico? No, Jasmine said. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone. Rasheeda's mouth tilted. Not quite a smile. You would have found another island. Jasmine answered without looking over. I would have found another time, she said. The audience oohed like a ripple of electricity. The host glanced off stage. Since we believe in clarity, we've invited a fourth voice. A low wave of whispers. The lights shifted. A woman walked out in a simple dress, eyes wide, shoulders squared like someone learning to breathe on a stage. The audience went feral. The host lifted his palm again, smiling like a fisherman who'd landed the big one. This is Alicia, he said, a production assistant at the label. Alicia, you contacted producers to verify messages that have been floating online. Are you comfortable sharing what you brought? Alicia nodded, fingers clenched around a phone. I texted Kirk for a while, she said, the words thin but clear. He told me it was private. He told me I was different. He told me he loved his family and needed a friend, and then he asked for things friends shouldn't be asked for. The crowd howled. The host raised his voice. Do you have proof? Alicia looked to the side. A screen lit up with a thread of messages, names blurred, timestamps bright. One line read, "Keep this quiet. I'll make it worth it." Another, "She won't know." Another, "We can fix us later." The room turned into a siren. Kirk put both hands on his head, elbows out like wings clipped too late. Rasheeda didn't move. She kept her face in a neutral mask shaped by years of practice, but her eyes softened at the edges for exactly 1 second. The way a window fogs when someone sighs in winter. The host asked, "Kirk, is that you?" Kirk's voice barely found itself. "Yes. Did you promise Alicia opportunities in exchange for intimate discretion?" Kirk stared at the floor. Eyes wet, saying, "People think I'm the villain, but they don't know the half of it." Kirk's been lying to everyone, not just Rasheeda. He manipulates, he promises, he hides, and we all fall for it. "I did once, but never again." The interviewer leaned in. "So you're saying there was another woman?" "More than one," Jasmine replied. "But I'm done covering for him. Let the truth burn." Within hours, clips from the interview hit every feed. Fans were screaming in comment sections. Old castmates went live giving their opinions. Spice posted a story saying, "See, I told y'all. When women speak, believe them." Carly tweeted, "Ain't no vacation without receipts." Kirk tried to deny it at first, posting a long caption about growth and privacy. It backfired. Fans flooded his comments with laughing emojis and quotes from Jasmine's interview. Within 2 days, brands started pulling away from his partnerships. One even issued a statement. "We stand with women who choose honesty over humiliation." Through it all, Rasheeda stayed silent, said things I shouldn't have said. So, yes. Silence answered for him. The audience booed hard enough to shake the rails. Jasmine stared at the screen like it was showing a ghost that had been living in her phone. "There it is," she whispered, and a microphone swallowed the words. Carried them across the floor, handed them to every ear in the room. The host leaned back. "Rasheeda, what do you feel seeing this?" She inhaled slowly, exhaled slower. "Familiar," she said. "Like returning to a house you moved out of but never changed the locks." The host nodded. "Do you want to speak to Jasmine?" Rasheeda turned to her, eyes level. "You and I were never friends," she said, "but I don't need you to be my enemy. I need you to stop giving me homework." Jasmine blinked, surprised into a tiny laugh that wasn't really humor. "I'm not trying to assign you anything," Jasmine said. "I'm trying to graduate, then stop enrolling." Rasheeda replied, "It wasn't cruel. It was surgical." The host pivoted. "Alicia, why come forward?" Alicia looked at her hands. "Because I watched the show. I watched her stand next to him and call it love. I watched her make businesses out of forgiveness. And then I watched my phone light up at 2 a.m. with somebody else's husband telling me I was special. I didn't want to be special like that." The audience hushed, one of those thick silences you only get when truth walks into the room barefoot and leaves footprints. The host gave a small, solemn nod. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "We've blurred your details for your safety. We appreciate your courage." Alicia looked at Rasheeda, not asking for anything, just offering the small gift of being believed. Rasheeda dipped her head in acknowledgement, a gesture that meant more than a hug would have the host turn to Kirk. "What now?" Kirk swallowed. "I need help," he said, and the sentence landed like a confession. Not the kind that lives in captions. Real help. Murmurs broke into mixed applause and skepticism. The host knows when a line will trend, and he let that one sit for a heartbeat, then two. "Are you asking for forgiveness?" Kirk shook his head. "I'm asking for quiet. For the space to change without needing a camera to film it." A woman in the back shouted, "Too late," and the room agreed in a rolling wave. A producer spoke into the host's ear. "Time to turn the knife." The host smiled politely. "We have one more piece of context," he said. In Puerto Rico, a hotel ledger surfaced with a suite booked under Jasmine's name. "Jasmine, did you pay for that room?" Jasmine set her jaw. "No," she said. "I found out the room was pre-arranged by production support. They called it a contingency hold. I didn't ask for it." The host raised a brow. "So you were invited?" Jasmine met his eyes. "I was told it was optional. I made a choice. And it was the wrong one." The honesty fell like a clean blade. The audience didn't cheer or boo. They processed. "And you, Rasheeda," the host said gently, "if you could say one thing to your past self before Puerto Rico, what would it be?" She stared at the lens like it was an old friend who never learned to listen. "Believe the first red flag," she said, "and then believe yourself when you decide to walk." The audience stood, clapping, not loud, but full. A different sound. The sound of recognition. Commercial break. The stage exhaled. Mics clicked off. Handlers swarmed with water bottles, tissues, whispers. Jasmine slipped to the side corridor, leaned against a painted cinder block wall, and let her head thud back lightly. Alicia hovered, unsure. Jasmine nodded at her. You did what you had to do, she said. Alicia nodded, eyes wet. So did you. Farther down the hall, Kirk stood alone, staring at a poster of an old season where he and Rasheeda smiled under a tagline about second chances. He reached up, touched the edge of the paper, and left a fingerprint no one else would see. In the dressing room, Rasheeda sat again, quiet as an unplugged amp. Spice stepped in, eyes blazing. You good? Good enough, Rasheeda said. Spice squeezed her hand. You sounded like facts, she said. Rasheeda answered with a half-smile. Facts don't always fix it. No, Spice said, but they stop you from fixing the wrong thing back on stage. The host announced audience questions. A woman with purple hair stood up, voice shaking with generational memory. Rasheeda, my mama stayed with a man like that for 20 years. When she finally left, she said the first night of silence was the loudest piece she ever heard. Are you hearing any peace yet? Rasheeda thought for a moment. I'm hearing a hallway, she said. Peace is at the end of it. I'm still walking. A man in a baseball cap pointed at Kirk. Bro, why keep hurting people who love you? Kirk's throat worked. Because I never learned how to love myself without applause, he said, and the honesty surprised even him. The man shook his head but sat down softer than he stood. A hand shot up near the front. Jasmine, a young woman, called. If you could say one thing to the version of you who first answered his message, what would it be? Jasmine smiled without humor. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb and mean it, she said. Laughter, then a round of applause that felt like community rather than spectacle. Another audience member asked Alicia, are you okay? She nodded. I will be. Another asked Rasheeda, do you believe in love after this? She didn't blink. I believe in boundaries, she said. The place erupted. The host gave closing words. The practiced cadence of someone who has watched 1,000 fires and learned how to end a show without ending the flames. Healing isn't linear, he said, and accountability isn't a headline. To everyone on this stage, thank you for showing up to your own truth, messy as it may be. The music swelled. The credits rolled to half volume. The audience filed out in a low hum. Cameras powered down like sleeping animals backstage. The real episode continued. Jasmine pulled on a hoodie and slipped toward a side exit. Alicia walked with her, then paused under the red glow of an exit sign. Can I ask you something? She said. Jasmine nodded. Do you still love him? Jasmine looked toward the parking lot where rain turned the asphalt into liquid glass. I love the lesson, she said. I don't love the test. Alicia nodded like that answer fit a lock in her chest and opened something. Thank you, she said. Jasmine squeezed her shoulder and vanished into the night. Kirk waited in a hallway that smelled like paint and old coffee. Hands empty for once. Rasheeda stepped out of her room with Spice and Carly. He took one step forward. Stopped. I'm not asking for anything, he said. I just wanted to say I heard you. She studied him, searching for the reflection of a man she used to recognize. Then let the hearing become doing, she said, and let the doing happen far away from me. He nodded, eyes wet but steady. Okay. Spice tugged gently at Rasheeda's sleeve. We rolling, she said. They walked past him like a tide that had learned the coastline and decided to find another shore outside. The city breathed steam and electricity. Fans gathered behind barricades, phones aloft, ready to turn any glance into content. A chant rose and fell. Team Rasheeda, and under it, another, softer sound. Not a chant but a murmur. The sound of people telling their own stories to themselves as they watched someone else survive theirs. A black SUV door opened. Rasheeda climbed in. The door clicked shut, like a period at the end of a long sentence. The car pulled away, taillights casting a red ribbon down the wet street later. At home, the house felt both haunted and relieved. She stood in the foyer and listened to nothing. It sounded like possibility. She walked room to room and touched the backs of chairs, the edge of a picture frame, a plant leaf that had started to curl. Upstairs, she opened a closet and pulled out a suitcase. Not to leave, to sort, to make space, to clean the language of her life. She folded clothes into piles marked keep, give, and done. In the kitchen, she poured water and didn't add anything to it. She drank until she could taste only water. She stood at the window and looked out at the wet glitter of Atlanta. A thought arrived, quiet and decisive. You do not owe the past your address across the city. Kirk sat in a guest room at a friend's place. Staring at a pamphlet for group therapy someone had slid into his hand. He read the first line 3 times. Healing starts when the performance ends. He put the pamphlet down, picked it up again, and dialed the number. A recorded voice said, Thank you for calling. Leave your name. He said his name like he was introducing a stranger to the phone. He hung up and cried in a way that made no sound. Jasmine unlocked her apartment and shut the door with her back. The quiet held her upright. She set her phone face down, then turned it face up and deleted 3 apps. She took a long shower, not to wash him off, but to remind herself she had a body that belonged to her. Afterward, she sat at the table and wrote a list, titled New Rules. The first rule was one word: discernment. The second was also one word: distance. The third took a full line. I am not a storyline. I am a person. Alicia returned to a small studio apartment where the radiator hissed like a friendly cat. She took her shoes off and lined them up, a small ritual that told her brain the world had edges. She brewed tea and stared at the steam until it became just steam, and not a metaphor. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Thank you for telling the truth. No signature. She smiled into the quiet. You're welcome, she said to the room, because sometimes that's enough. Days passed. Clips from the reunion spun their orbit. Analysts weighed in like it was politics. Fans posted photo carousels labeled growth and delusion. Brands slid carefully into Rasheeda's DMs with language about resilience. She answered 2 of them and left the rest unread. In a late-night live, Spice said, "Closure is a door you build, not a door you find." And the comments filled with keys emoji. Carly posted a picture of a bouquet with the caption, "Flowers for the living." Jasmine uploaded a cooking video with the comments turned off and a smile that fit her face again. Alicia started a private account and posted a sunset with no tags. Kirk logged off for a week and then for another one afternoon. Rasheeda drove back to the boutique. The staff gathered like a chorus waiting for the conductor. She stood under the store's bright lights and said, "We're going to be fine." Which meant, I'm going to be fine, and also, we're going to sell out this new drop. And also, your paychecks are safe. And also, the ground under our feet is not quicksand. She took the sign with both their names off the office door and handed it to an assistant. Storage, she said, voice even, not the trash. History goes on the shelf. The assistant nodded with a softness reserved for people who just watched a leader stitch a wound closed while standing up that night. A text arrived from a number she knew too well. It read, "I'm proud of you." She didn't reply. Responding would be a hand reaching backward down a dark staircase. Instead, she set the phone down, curled her knees to her chest on the couch, and let a movie play without watching it until she realized she was comfortable again, which felt like a miracle. Disguised as a Tuesday, the city turned, as cities do. In a week, another scandal climbed the charts. In 2 weeks, the think pieces wore out their shoes. But the people at the center of this story kept living it in smaller, truer ways. Kirk went to meetings where nobody cared. He was famous. He said the first honest no to himself and sat with the silence afterward until it sounded like yes. Jasmine kept her phone on Do Not Disturb every night after 9 and watched her sleep heal. Alicia said no to 2 glossy opportunities that smelled like a trap and yes to one that smelled like a ladder. Rasheeda learned which hour the sun touched her porch in a way that warmed her hands, and she stood there every day at that hour like it was an appointment with the person she had always promised to become when they finally crossed paths again. It wasn't on a stage. It was outside a charity event for local schools. Cameras were there. Of course, because cameras follow gravity. But the meeting had nothing to do with lenses. Rasheeda stepped out of a car. Kirk was already on the sidewalk, pocketing his phone. Looking like a man who had learned to carry his past without dragging it, they made eye contact. He nodded once. She nodded back. No scene, no soundbite, no headline. Just 2 characters in a scripted world, choosing a human beat between edits, and if you leaned in close, you could hear the quiet they both asked for finally arriving. Not as a rescue, but as a room where the door stayed open, where the air didn't demand anything, where the only script was the one they wrote in their chest. ENOUGH. And now, and mine, the night after the reunion felt like the city had turned down its volume but left all the lights on. A fine drizzle stitched Atlanta's streets together, and somewhere under that wet shine, the story kept breathing. Cameras slept, but the characters didn't. Rasheeda sat at her kitchen table with a mug that had gone cold twice. The reunion makeup fully gone, the armor on a hanger by the door. Her phone buzzed with messages from producers saying incredible television and thank you for your bravery. And can we hop on a quick call tomorrow to discuss the follow-up arc? She put the phone face down and listened to the refrigerator hum and the rain tap. The window in a rhythm she could almost forgive across town. Kirk lay on a couch that wasn't his, staring at a ceiling that didn't know his name. The pamphlet for group therapy sat on his chest like a book he was afraid to open. He rehearsed apologies to a dark room, then stopped. because apologies had become costumes he changed out of before anyone got home. He pressed the pamphlet to his face and whispered, "I'll go." And the ceiling didn't answer, but something in his chest did. A small yes trying to grow legs. Jasmine's apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and new starts. She'd packed 2 boxes labeled someday and 1 labeled never again. Her laptop screen glowed with a contract for a cooking web series. Nothing fancy, but hers. The comments were turned off and the spice rack behind her was alphabetized like a quiet rebellion. She tied her hair up, set a skillet on low, and filmed a soft, steady voiceover about brown butter and boundaries. When she finished, she sat on the floor with a bowl of pasta and let herself eat in peace without scrolling for proof she deserved it. Morning arrived with producer emails shaped like opportunities and traps. The network wanted a sit-down with Rasheeda and Kirk, 1-on-1, no audience, just truth. They also wanted Jasmine to surprise the last 5 minutes. Not a confrontation, just closure. There was a whisper about a limited series spin-off to follow these brave journeys of accountability and self-reinvention. The words were clean. The edges were sharp. The call came at 9:03 a.m. "We see a path forward," the executive said, voice warm from years of practice. "We want to empower you to tell your story your way." Rasheeda looked out the window at a small bird on the fence. "My way starts with no." A beat of silence traveled across the line. "We respect that," the executive said, already typing a new plan. "If you change your mind, I won't," Rasheeda said, and ended the call like closing a book that had been reread to tatters by noon. Kirk pulled into a plain parking lot behind a church annex with a sign that read Community Room B. He almost didn't go in. He almost drove to a gym and punished himself with a treadmill instead. He almost texted a producer to set up a redemption arc with soft lighting. Instead, he pushed the door and stepped into a circle of metal chairs and paper cups. No cameras. No mics. A man in a denim jacket nodded. "You're here." Kirk nodded back. "I'm here." He sat down, listened to strangers say their names and their small truths. And when the circle reached him, he said his own name like it was the first time. He didn't share a story. He didn't cry. He breathed and let other people's honesty bump into his until it woke something he'd kept asleep on purpose that afternoon. Jasmine walked into a modest studio kitchen to shoot the pilot for the web series. A young producer with a kind face adjusted a light and said, "We're not here to ask about your personal life. We're here to make good food with you." Jasmine blinked, almost suspicious of gentleness. "Good," she said. "Then let's make it." They filmed 3 recipes and 0 innuendo, and when she watched playback, she saw a person who didn't owe chaos her talent. She smiled without flinching and said, "Again," and they did by evening. The network floated a new idea. Bring the cast to Puerto Rico again for a healing retreat, supervised by a therapist on camera. The group chat lit up with opinions. Spice sent a voice note, "If it's for ratings, count me out. If it's for real, count me in." Carly texted a string of side-eye emojis and the words "not another island." A junior producer accidentally posted a screenshot of a pitch deck titled Hurricane Forgiveness. It was deleted in 1 minute and saved by 30 phones in 30 seconds. Rasheeda met Spice at a quiet coffee spot where the music was low and the pastries looked like they believed in second chances. Spice slid into the booth, hugged her tight, and said, "You looked like a whole sermon at the reunion." Rasheeda exhaled a laugh into her cup. "I felt like a quiet choir." Spice leaned in. "They're going to keep calling. What you want?" Rasheeda turned the mug between her hands. "I want my piece louder than their plans." Spice nodded. "Then let's build a fence around it." They mapped out a week. Morning workouts with no phones. Business meetings with a lawyer present. 1 curated post to close the book on speculation. And a soft launch for a charity initiative that had nothing to do with the scandal. "Redirect the lens," Spice said. "Make it look where you need it to." Later that night, Kirk parked outside the house and didn't go in. He texted a single line. "I'm going to meetings." No ask, no plea, just a small flag planted in steady soil. After a long minute, a reply arrived. "That's your work, not my responsibility." He read it twice and didn't argue. He typed back, "Understood." He put the phone down and watched the porch light. It didn't blink. He drove away. 3 days passed like a slow-turning page. The internet found a new storm to chase. The reunion clips still floated, but farther down the feed. The boutique drop sold out. Jasmine's pilot quietly hit 100,000 views with comments, limited to 10 curated notes that said things like "proud of you" and "looks delicious" and "you look happy." In a meeting room with carpet too loud to ignore, a network strategist slid a timeline across a table and said, "We can't force the beat. We wait for the next inciting incident." Someone else said, or we manufacture one. The room made that low industry sound of agreement that isn't agreement. Just momentum. The next inciting incident arrived by itself. A photo surfaced of Alicia in a different, better job at a different label, smiling next to a banner that said mentorship matters. The caption was simple, moving forward. The comments were full of women saying go sis and men saying proud and a few accounts shaped like shadows asking for mess. There was no mess to be found. Someone screen grabbed it and posted it with a split image of the reunion texts. The new narrative tried to start. Redemption round 1. It didn't catch. Quiet was contagious. Then came the call nobody expected. The host from the reunion wanted a private, off-camera dinner with Rasheeda and Jasmine. No trap, he promised. No surprise guests. No hidden questions. Just two women who got turned into weather systems by a machine, sharing a table in a room with no microphones. Everybody advised against it. Everybody had a reason. Everybody had a headline they wanted to avoid. After 2 days, Rasheeda said yes under one condition. No narrative leaves that room unless we both whisper it together. Jasmine agreed, and for the first time, the thought of seeing each other didn't feel like picking a scab. It felt like checking a scar. They met at a restaurant with soft lamps and a back room that had seen secrets before, and poured them a glass of water afterward. They sat across from each other. No glam squad, no managers, just fork, knife, heartbeat. The host kept his promise, ordered appetizers, and then left them alone, like a good chaperone who understood grown women don't need one. A minute passed. Another Jasmine said, "You look rested." Rasheeda nodded. "You look steady." They breathed the same air and didn't drown. "I want to say I'm sorry," Jasmine began. "Not for everything you've ever been through, because I didn't do all of that, but for the parts my choices touched." Rasheeda studied her face like a map. "I accept the part that belongs to you," she said. "I'm not hauling the rest anymore." Jasmine nodded, relief loosening her shoulders. "I kept thinking, if I explained enough, people would understand," she said. "I learned something. Understanding is not a receipt. You can't demand it." Rasheeda smiled at that, small and real. "You can only cash what you earn," she said. "And sometimes you don't even need the cash. Sometimes you just need to leave the store." They talked about children and sleep and the price of public pain. They didn't trade barbs. They traded oxygen. Somewhere in the middle of the second course, Jasmine said, "Do you still love him?" Rasheeda didn't flinch. "I love myself more," she said. Jasmine's eyes went glassy. "That answer is a lighthouse." Rasheeda tilted her head. "You got yours too?" "I can see the beam." The check came. They split it. No symbolism. Just adults paying for their food. As they stood, Jasmine paused. "If they ask me about this," she said, "I'm going to tell them it was two women eating dinner." Rasheeda nodded. "If they ask me, I'll say the same." Outside, flashbulbs tried to catch a story. The women gave them a picture with nothing hidden in it. No whispered names. No pointed fingers. Just two people walking to their cars. The photos posted with captions that tried to spark. The spark didn't catch. Quiet stayed winning. Meanwhile, Kirk stacked his days like blocks he didn't want to knock over. Meetings, exercise, a journal with 3 lines a day written like a man learning to form letters. He called a coach, hired a real therapist, cut a number from his phone without archiving it, and sat with the ache that followed. He tried to send flowers to the house. The delivery bounced back. He didn't try again. He drove past the boutique once, kept going, and went home to the couch that was still not his, and the pamphlet that was now dog-eared from. Use the network pivoted. A new logline circulated, not about the scandal, about the recovery. Someone pitched a roundtable of women from the cast discussing boundaries and business. It felt less like spectacle and more like a room with good chairs. Rasheeda said yes, with conditions that sounded like contracts and felt like guardrails. Spice signed on in 10 minutes. Carly asked if there would be tea. The producer said herbal only. They laughed in a way that didn't require apology on shoot day. The set looked like a living room where the rent was paid on time and the plants had names. No cue cards about men. No ambush. They talked money, confidence, mistakes, and the day they each learned how to hear their own no. When they wrapped, the director said, "That felt like a gentle fist." The episode aired and trended without blood. Comments said things like, "I needed this, and my daughter watched with me, and I set a boundary today because of this." The algorithm blinked, confused, then shrugged and delivered a week later. Jasmine's cooking show landed a small sponsor who didn't ask her to cry in the ad read. Alicia launched a mentorship circle with 3 young women and a spreadsheet that knew where every dollar went. Kirk chaired a meeting where he didn't speak, then stayed after 2 stacked chairs. Rasheeda woke up before the sun and ran the quiet streets while the city was still deciding what to be. And somewhere near the 3rd mile she smiled because her legs felt like a promise she kept to herself, and then, as if the universe couldn't resist one last test, the Puerto Rico resort reached out with an invitation to a charity gala honoring local staff who had weathered the storm of fame. The email mentioned their names. The subtext hummed. Producers sniffed opportunity. Publicists drafted firm no's. Rasheeda read the email twice and forwarded it to Jasmine with a line. "This looks real, not performative." Jasmine replied, "I can go if it's for them, not for us." Kirk received the same invitation and didn't answer for a day. When he did, he wrote, "I'll donate and stay home 2 months after the night that cracked the island open." The characters returned to the same coastline with different hearts. No cameras. No plots. A stage that was just a stage with a mic that didn't belong to a network. Hotel staff in crisp shirts and shy smiles accepted awards while families clapped. Rasheeda presented a scholarship fund in the name of a woman who had once handed her a tissue in a hallway no one filmed. Jasmine handed out gift cards to the line cooks who had worked through the chaos. They hugged people they didn't owe and meant it at the edge of the event, where the sand began to argue with the concrete. The two women stood and watched the horizon bruise itself back into evening. Jasmine said, "You ever think about how we survived a thing that wanted to be our identity?" Rasheeda nodded. "I think about how we named it before it named us." Jasmine laughed softly. "We gave it a smaller name." "Exactly," Rasheeda said. "We called it a lesson." A gust of wind chased a napkin past their ankles. Someone called their names to take a photo with the staff. They went. And they smiled. And the picture caught 2 people who had walked through fire and didn't need to smell like smoke to prove it. Later, alone with the ocean, Rasheeda took off her shoes and let the tide touch her toes. She closed her eyes and heard the same sound she'd heard the first night here, but now it didn't drown her. It sang. Jasmine stood a few feet away and recorded a 5-second clip of the waves for her cooking shows. B-roll and captioned it simply, "Salt back in Atlanta." A voicemail waited on Kirk's phone from his therapist confirming next week's session time. He listened twice because confirmation felt like a new language he was finally learning to speak. He texted his son a photo of a small plant on a windowsill and wrote, "Day 14, still alive." His son replied with 3 green heart emojis and the word king. Kirk laughed and said to the room, "One day at a time." And for once it wasn't a caption, it was a calendar. The season turned. Gossip cooled. Work warmed. When the network tried to spin the charity trip into a special, both women declined. When a blog wrote a headline that suggested a secret reconciliation, neither corrected it because neither needed to. People would say what they wanted. The truth would keep its own ledger. When fans approached in grocery stores and whispered, "I left when you left," or "I stayed and made rules," both women said the same thing in different ways. "I'm proud of you." When Kirk walked past a mirror and didn't look away, he stayed long enough to meet his gaze, and when the next big storyline arrived for someone else, as it always does, the characters of this drama did what the wise do at the end of an arc. They didn't audition to be in it. They checked their doors, watered their plants, stirred their sauces, stacked their chairs, called their friends, answered their own names, and let the cameras be cameras without making their souls into scripts. The show kept